Hello YouTube, SlayerJesse here. Today I'll be teaching you how to make some of the most delicious, chocolatey, fudgy, whatever you want to call the best. I'll be teaching you how to make the best keto brownies. Only 1 carb per brownie. Stay tuned. Alright everyone, let's get started. So brownies are interesting in that almost all of them require a 2-bowl variation. So we're going to do a chocolate sauce later, but we'll go ahead and start with this egg mixture. We're going to add 2 whole large eggs to the bowl, and then we're going to scramble them. Well, not scramble, we're going to stir them. So sometimes you have to worry about bubbles being in there, but what we're going to do is we're going to add the egg and the sugar and just go ahead and stir it until it's all incorporated, and then set it aside so that some of those bubbles can just kind of come out naturally while we're working on the chocolate sauce. So you usually don't want bubbles in the eggs because that will make the brownies less dense. So you kind of lose that normal brownie texture you're used to. So we're going to go ahead and add the brown sugar swerve, and that is 1/4 of a cup. And I'm trying to break that up as best as I can. Here I switch over to a whisk because it's much quicker trying to incorporate the brown sugar into the egg mixture. And again, even though this will aerate the eggs, I'm not as worried about it because we are going to set it aside. Okay, next we're going to add 1/4 of a cup of the powdered swerve to the, or confectioner swerve, to the egg mixture. And then we're going to whisk that and incorporate that completely into the egg mixture as well. Okay, you can kind of see some of the bubbles that are in there, but that's alright. I'm going to pick it up and drop it a few times just to get some of those bubbles to pop. And then I'll set it aside, and we can go ahead and start on the chocolate sauce. With the chocolate sauce, we're going to add 1 tablespoon of coconut oil and then 2 tablespoons of butter. And I'm just going to take that and pop it in the microwave for 30 seconds, 30 to 45 seconds. We just want it heated all the way through because we're going to melt the ingredients into it. Alright, so that actually took a full minute, but you know, every microwave's different. We're going to go ahead and add 1/4 of a cup of the Lily's 0 carb baking chips. Okay, and now we stir and stir and stir until everything is incorporated into a very nice, smooth, silky sauce. And you can tell when it's done because there'll be hardly any resistance at the bottom of the bowl. You can feel the chocolate kind of stick. So once it's not sticking anymore towards the bottom, we can move on to our next step. We're adding 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and then we're going to add 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder, and that'll make our chocolate sauce a little bit more chocolatey and give it a stronger flavor so it carries through in the brownies. And we'll mix all that together. While I'm doing that, I'm going to add the salt to the mixture, and that is 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. I know it looked like a little more there, but that's really all it was. That'll help bring out some of the flavors of the chocolate. And again, you want to stir until everything's incorporated with a nice silky texture to it. So you're just basically breaking up all that cocoa powder. And to this, we're going to go ahead and add the rest of our dry ingredients. This is half a cup of almond flour, 1 tablespoon of psyllium husk, 1/8 of a teaspoon of baking powder.
Let's do a timeout. So, if you like your brownies more fudgy, then definitely stick with the recipe. However, if you like them a little cakey, and they're still very, very delicious, there's only one thing that you need to change, and that is how much baking powder you put in. If you want them to come out just a little more cakey, do 1/4 a teaspoon of baking powder.
And I know it doesn't sound like a big difference, but when you're cooking or baking a small amount of brownies like this, because these are going into a bread pan versus a brownie pan, it is a very large difference. So you'll come out with a much more cake-like brownie. And I really like this recipe because that small difference gives you a huge variation in this recipe. A cakey brownie versus a fudgy brownie. As you stir, the batter will start to get thick, and that's what we want. And that shows that everything's incorporated very well. We want that almond flour in. Then we're going to add half of a tablespoon of heavy cream. And what this is doing, it's bringing a richness into all of this chocolate that we've just been adding chocolate upon chocolate upon chocolate. And if you wanted to cut carbs even more so, you could just add water. After that's been mixed into the batter, we're going to add our egg sugar concoction. And then I suggest using a spatula for this part because a lot of the sugar will have settled a little bit from where we've been letting it sit for the bubbles to de-aerate from the eggs. So, use a spatula to get all the good stuff. And once we have it all out of the bowl, we can go ahead and start mixing. And like everything else, you want it just to become fully incorporated. And however, I wouldn't suggest going ham on this. You definitely want to kind of fold the eggs into the batter because you want to reduce the air bubbles. We're at a point now where the air bubbles can really affect how it bakes. And the crisscross method I'm doing here is kind of like when you paint up and down. It's just going side to side, and it's just a quick way for me to fold everything together without adding air bubbles. Now it's almost time to bake, so at this point go ahead and add whatever you'd like to add. I add 1/4 of a cup of the chocolate chips, and you can add peanuts, pecans, anything you want to add to your brownies to make them a little extra. Go ahead and do it. I do highly suggest the extra chocolate chips though. I mean, it's 0 carbs and you're just going to intensify everything chocolatey with this brownie. And now we're ready for the bread pan. This is a standard size bread pan. It's either a 4x8 or 5x9, which, the standard size kind of is in that range. And what we're doing here is we're just going to make it non-stick with the parchment paper. And I recommend parchment paper versus a non-stick spray because it makes getting the brownies out very, very easy. And then to this, we're just going to go ahead and add our batter and smooth it out. And once you got it kind of smooth, if you wanted to add, walnuts or maybe coconut flakes on the top of it, that would be the time to do that as well, because it is now ready for the oven. Pop it in at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 20 minutes to 25 minutes. Alright, you'll know that these are done and ready to come out of the oven and cool when they no longer jiggle on the inside. So I don't toothpick, I prefer a jiggle. That way, you know, you're not overcooking the brownies. It's always better to be underdone than over with something like brownies. I did take them out and I let them cool for about 10 minutes, and now they're ready to come out. And this is why it's very, very nice to have the parchment paper, because you can just pop it out of the pan and you're good to go. Whereas, you know, if you work with a non-stick, sometimes they still might stick. So I just prefer it a lot easier, and it makes cleanup very nice too, because now you don't have to clean the pan either. Go ahead and cut them into 8 little squares and enjoy. Let's go ahead and take a look at that center. It is nice and fudgy.
All right, you made it to the end of the video. So let's talk about substitutions. So we'll start off with the psyllium husk. If you would like to substitute the psyllium husk for something, you can do it with xanthium gum here. I would add about half a teaspoon of the xanthium gum. And if you don't have either of these, I mean, technically, I think you can always omit these. They're just, highly recommended. And again, you know, for your bacon needs, 9 times out of 10, I will recommend psyllium husk. It's just, it does a lot better with bacon. It gets you that consistency. It makes up, it kind of has a chemical reaction similar to that of what you would get out of baking with, you know, regular sugar and regular flour. So this is the best thing for baking. And if you're on that, I'm not trying to push the product. I kind of am. I'm not making any money. It's not sponsored, but it's just, this is, if you're going into keto baking, this is the way to do it. The next thing that I'll be doing is guacamole. I know it's very, very simple. A lot of people can do it, but this is a special request from my mother. So I'm gonna teach you, Mom, how to do a perfect guac every time. If you're watching and you've tried these, just leave a comment down below what you think about them. And if you have any requests for any upcoming food videos, feel free to leave those down in the comments too. But you know, it's getting kind of late. I gotta go. See ya.